Welcome, everyone. Very glad that so many people signed up to this. When we had this idea during Haystack US, I thought maybe 20 people will sign up, and now it's almost 70. And I think that's, there's always a bit of a lower turnout, but it shows that this topic of building search platforms in the EI area resonates not just with what we see, with the clients that we see, with whom we work, but with a lot of people. And we thought we should make this a bit more systematic and collect a few thoughts around it and think about it from our practice perspective, and then share it with a wider community. So overall, I would say this is a topic that is to some degree a bit new, basically triggered through AI. But nevertheless, this is what we are facing now, and we can't just rely on what we've known for many years. We have to approach things a bit in a new way. So I'm René Kriegler. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Open Source Connections. I also lead the fulfillment team at OSC. I've been in search for almost 20 years, and with me today is Eric Pugh, our co-founder and senior search consultant. And you might know Eric from many roles, also related to Solar and Open Search. And he's also been in this domain since many years. So who are we as Open Source Connections? So I've mentioned we are going through this phase of replatforming with a number of clients. And I think this is because this is our kind of sweet spot, because this is where we think we can, or that's an example of a situation where we think we can help clients quite considerably. So we help them to become better at search, but especially in those situations where they kind of transform how they do search. So replatforming, migrating is one of those situations, but could also be a situation where they want to implement search in a new way, where they want to upskill, etc. In this context, we provide strategic consulting, help them with the hands-on implementation, and also provide trainings to help them build their skills. But overall, it's always in this sense of empowerment, so that they can, in the end, become or own their search a lot better. Just to mention a few of our clients on both sides of the Atlantic. So in Europe, some might have known of Otto in Germany, or Rubix in France, and Deutsche Bahn, German Railways. On the other side of the Atlantic, Moody's, this financial analytics company, is probably well known, LexisNexis and Home Depot, to name just a few. So we want to start and think about search platforms in the AI era. What does it mean? And how does it happen at all? So we hear this a lot. So teams, people saying, oh, we need a new search platform. And why is that? One aspect of it is definitely AI, in the sense that people want to create a number of AI applications, and they need search for that. So search provides some context, becomes a tool to empower the AI application, whatever you want to do. Then there are some teams that say it's not just that AI should support, that search should support AI, it's also the other way around. So we want to exploit AI for implementing better search. We have a search use case already, but we want to become better at it, and we want to use AI for this. And then there can be contexts like people reconsidering their existing search technology, and they've used search engine X for many years, and they realize, might be a bit outdated, our search stack. Or this happens more often than you think. Yeah? So a highly paid person says, oh, we need better search. Look at this search technology, because they might have gotten a call from the salesperson from that search engine. And there are so many promises around. Yeah? So these are triggers that lead to teams reconsidering their search platform. And then there might be other concerns, and they might not necessarily be related to AI. So a company recognizes over time, we've built so many searches because there are so many use cases that need search. Let's streamline the implementation. Let them all use the same platform. That should be an efficiency gain. Or there's this idea that we anticipate that we will do more search in our organization, and might not be a centralized team, but we have to ramp up our other teams to implement search. So this idea of a centralized search platform keeps coming up in many, many situations. So we need a new search platform, or we need a search platform. How do we go about it? And it's very tempting to just follow a procedure. We say, oh, we collect the requirements, start a vendor or technology selection process, and then start the implementation. And I've seen this a number of times. And then we hope for the platform adoption and the bright future. Yeah, so there is something missing here. Yeah, so we might not be able to attract a lot of our organization's use cases to our new platform. And we don't really know into which direction this platform might grow. And we are not quite certain whether it's structured in the right way so that we can accommodate future use cases. And so overall, I think we need a bit more attention to it. Some of my colleagues, I think they played with AI a bit, but they found this nice metaphor of a bonsai tree. So they said, your search platform is a bonsai. Yeah, and if you leave a bonsai tree to its own devices, it would evolve organically, but then it would reflect basically what we already have, our organization structure. You know, so some might have heard of Conway's law. We come back to this. So it might not be fit for the future. It might just reflect what we already have, our old stuff. Just becomes another tree. But thinking of this bonsai metaphor, we might give some guidance, some vision, yeah, and shape what we build, yeah, like we would shape a bonsai tree. And then it would be very simple, but beautiful, and would last for very long. Yeah, so this basically is the idea. Yeah, so we have to look forward and then steer and shape what we grow there. I want to follow this metaphor a bit and want to start with the soil. And in this context, you might think I'm taking it a bit far, but in this context, I would say the soil into which you plant your bonsai tree, that's your organization. Yeah, so, and that's a very important aspect. Yeah, and I think the first thing that someone should do when it comes to creating a platform is taking stock where you are, actually, an honest assessment. Yeah, so we've had cases where organizations which had practically hardly any skill in search said they want to build a search platform. So that means a lot of ramping up. Yeah, so it's possible, but that means you have to approach the whole topic of search. Yeah, so you need this honest assessment. What needs to be built, what needs to be established, and then go from there. So those who know OSC a bit, know our company, they would probably be familiar or might have seen this idea of a search maturity assessment. That's what we like to do at the beginning of a transformation, or specifically when we want to build a search platform. And the way this works is we would look at several maturity areas, and it comes a bit in varying flavors. But the key aspects here of search maturity are represented in this slide. And I think the first driver here is the business. So do we understand in search what we need from the business side? Yeah, so is there an agreement and an accountability for search? And I'll show a few anti-patterns in a bit, and also good patterns. Understanding user needs. Do we understand how well search works? So do we understand the quality of our search results? Can we experiment? What do we know about our data inventory and data quality, etc.? How professional are we at enriching the data? Then the search technology itself, then the query side, query enrichment, and then in this specific incarnation of our maturity assessment, we have AI readiness. I think this is a bit of an underlying theme here in the overall presentation. But there could be other aspects here, even going to UI. I want to map this a bit to the platform situation. So let's say the business aspect of it. So let's say we have no agreed and measurable goal for search. Yeah, so then we would start building a platform, and on day X we put it online, and we don't know how good it is. Yeah, so and we wouldn't even know what we optimize for. Yeah, so that means there will be a debate. Yeah, it looks better, it doesn't look better. Oh, I found this error. This result shouldn't be there. This looks good. Yeah, so this is not how we can systematically establish a search platform. Then another aspect here that could be also positively established is a subject matter expert closely available for search? Yeah, so how closely do the two sides work together? And I would argue that this is especially important for AI, because in AI, or when you support AI applications, you want to support a certain builder culture. Yeah, and if you have followed product development in AI, one of the crucial aspects is you have a subject matter expert on your search or on your tech team. Yeah, in this context, it would mean you need a very close relationship or even integration of some business person, product person with the search platform. Another the opposite of it would be an anti-pattern that is not suitable for AI. So long feature definitions, yeah, and discussions about this without getting started, approval processes and handovers, QA cycles that don't make much sense. So you get the idea. So we need a very seamless and defined collaboration between search and business when we want to build a new platform. Another example, user needs. Yeah, so this is about understanding and measuring search result quality. So this leads back to business, but there's also like an offline experimentation around this and assessment of search result quality. So if you can't do this, then we go into a high risk situation. Yeah, so one day release the platform, and if this is the first time when we are able to see or when we are able to get feedback to our search, that might be a bit late. Or no search tracking. Yeah, so we build a platform but don't know what the queries are. Yeah, so and what users like. Yeah, so that's yet another anti-pattern here. Another one, experimentation. I think if a company has no experimentation culture at all, it would struggle with AI adoption in general. Yeah, so this means we would struggle to get into this builder culture and into those short cycles of creating products. And I would say this correlates with this expectation, you know, that the new search technology will solve all our problems if we don't have this experimentation mindset. We just try to shop for technology, but in search, that's asking for disaster. And then the next anti-pattern, no A/B testing. Basically, it means when we release the platform, we don't know how good we are compared to the old one. So that's another aspect here that is crucial. Data, and we come back to data quite a bit. So scattered ownership of data, that can be a problem. Then we have to go around and understand what the data looks like, where do we get data from, etc. Or complex business logic and data transformations. That's an aspect that if it's done in search, we should be careful not to import all this complexity to our new platform. Search technology, yeah, so this happens quite a lot, at least from as a consultant, we see this quite a lot. So teams realize we need to do something about our search, maybe build a new platform, but no one really knows what this platform or why this platform was built like it is 2 developer generations ago. Yeah, so this is something like archaeology. Yeah, so that's not a good situation. But there can also be something that is nothing to do with neglect. There can be a skills mismatch in the team. Yeah, so maybe this new technology requires a certain skill that we just hadn't needed beforehand, and now we need to build it. Yeah, so we have to go through this assessment systematically and strategically. If you look a bit at who is going to implement search in your organization, I think there is a number of typical scenarios. Yeah, so there could be no search team at all yet. Yeah, so then you have to build everything from scratch. There could be an existing search platform team. That's something we rarely see. Usually it's more like an operations team, like platform operations, but not a search application management. And then there might be a search application team. Yeah, so this team maybe has owned search front end to back end so far. They were responsible for, let's say, on-site search. And now there are more applications in the organization that need search. So this team might have to become a platform team. Yeah, so that's a pattern that we see quite a number of times. And that's interesting. Yeah, so because you have to leave a certain mindset, your application building mindset and owning everything mindset, to we are a platform now. And we'll come back to this a bit later too. So our starting point, yeah, so we have to do this assessment in terms of our maturity. And I think what I really wanted to convey is that this is not just a technical question or a question of technology, but it also relates to skills, practices, cultures, and your organization overall. Yeah, so I think that's crucial. You shouldn't just start with feature definition. Yeah, so and then select a vendor and implement. There's more to it, and you should approach this systematically. So coming back to our metaphor, so the root of our bonsai tree, I would say that's the data. Yeah. So this is where search comes in. We want to give a certain type of access to data sources. Yeah. So make data accessible via search, via language to applications and finally end users. So what you'll definitely need at the beginning of your platform project is an overview of your data sources, of the known data sources so far. And you would probably have to check, or you'll have to check your data for their quality. And there are many dimensions of quality, like consistency, completeness, availability. Do I get the data once or permanently? Uniqueness. Yeah, so is there duplication? Why are there duplications? Yeah, so maybe a product in one domain means something different from a product in a different domain, but they share certain parts of data. Not a nice situation. Is the data valid? And is it suitable for search? Yeah, so do I get my language in it? And I also have to look at required data for transformation. So if I want to make the data searchable, what transformations do I need for my data? And here, I think, is a point that is very crucial when you want to build a search platform. And the idea would be to do as few data transformations during ingestion and indexing as possible, and leave that more to the platform clients. And I want to explain this a bit in the following slides. So let's say we have an application team, no platform team yet. So, and they have a search engine that they need to index to. And we, more often than not, we have a situation where we pull data from a variety of data sources, do some transformations of this data, and then index them. Yeah, so in e-commerce, that could be something like combining product data with, let's say, stock data or behavioral information, etc. And this can be very adverse to a platform because if you try to scale this, then you have to do a number of those business logic transformations. The more clients you get to your platform, the more of those transformations you have. And think about this poor platform team. If they had to remember and maintain all those transformations for all the business specifics that are out there in the organization, that if there's other applications want to use search, this becomes a nightmare. Yeah, so I think the best way to do this is push those transformations that depend on a multitude of data sources that require specific insights into those data sources from the business perspective to the consumers of the platform or to the providers of the search platform. And in many cases, that could even mean that you might have to establish a team that specifically deals with those data transformations beforehand. Yeah, but for the search, from the search team, I would say it's not their concern. Yeah, and then we would each of them would provide their data maybe via an API or a pub/sub system, and then the search team basically uses relatively flat data that they then index and make available in their platform. So if you think about data source and data transformation in the context of establishing a platform, I think this is usually the most crucial factor where teams spend most of their time. It's not necessarily AI specific. Yeah, so I might have things like chunking, etc., or embeddings creation when I index the data. So this can all be hidden here. Yeah, so I do this here. But the crux is mainly this idea of dealing with the data sources, understanding the data sources, and then draw a sharp line what goes into search and what not. Yeah, and try to keep this business logic out of the search platform as much as possible. So now we've spoken about platform, but not very AI specific and not very search specific. Let's say not very search specific. So our bonsai tree now is a search bonsai tree. So we are creating a platform for search. And what does this mean nowadays? I don't want to give you a lot of detail about, oh, you need this component, that component. Also because a lot of this is in flux. But overall, there are some evolving patterns. So nowadays, I would say everyone builds cloud native. Yeah, so goes to the cloud and often as a managed service. So you leave that complexity of the operations to someone who provides that search engine to you. Also, hybrid search now, I think, is commoditized. Yeah, so lexical plus dense vector search is a starting point. It's not something that you add later. Yeah, so you think about it and try to implement it right from the beginning. There might still be some specialized retrieval approaches depending on your use case. You might say, oh, for this use case, I don't need embeddings. So then you save some latency maybe and some compute power. Or you would say, oh, here I only want to have vector search. Yeah, so there is some consideration, but you expect hybrid search to be there. Also, a tendency is that move to longer queries, natural language input. In parts, it's triggered by the users, but I think there's a very slow adoption. So I'm speaking about the search box and people putting longer queries in the search box. But we should expect longer queries coming from agents. And that means we have to think about compute times when you think about embeddings, etc. So that's a certain impact on our system. There also seems to be a tendency to apply a query understanding component. So something that interprets the query, maybe extracts entities. This could be complemented by a rule-based system. Actually, I forgot to put this on the slide. So business rules is a thing, especially at the age of agentic, so that you say, if that's the query, interpret the query or expand the query following a certain rule, because it also helps to add some determinism if we apply a lot of AI. Yeah, so for some queries, we want to make sure we can manually maintain that. Then we expect agentic users. I've already mentioned longer queries, but also I think we need to establish a higher precision to keep the context that we send to those agents clean. Also some result confidence indicators so that an agent can decide whether they should requery or not. Yeah, so help them interpret the results. And then from the tooling aspect, I would say LM as a judge becomes a tool that almost everyone uses. There still is this aspect of human in the loop before we can ramp up an LM as a judge. But overall, this becomes a standard tool. On a side note, we are providing a class LM as a judge. We've done this offline a number of times, in person, but there should soon be also an online class. So I would say at this point, I don't want to draw an example architecture, etc., but I want to mention two principles that I think are important when we design our platform. The first principle is it must support the builder culture, and that has a number of implications. So the target user might be the product manager, not necessarily the developer. Yeah, so people who want to experiment with it and not go through long development cycles. So that means on the one hand side, when we provide the platform, we must get into that mindset and have product people on our platform team. But the other aspect is also the ease of use of the API. Yeah, so it's a, let's call it an API consumer experience, yeah, that we're building. So something that requires a long chain of API calls to get one need fulfilled might be a bit adverse. Yeah, so that's, people can still do this, but maybe we can make it more comfortable and provide the tools, clients, etc., or UIs for trying things out to help with the adoption and make lives easier for people in those roles who are not deep tech. The other aspect is we should get ready for agentic search optimization. Interestingly, we had a conversation or a panel discussion in Charlottesville during Haystack US, where during the conference, there was a lot about agentic search optimization. The panel discussion was, do we still need traditional search engines or is everything agentic? And at one point, I asked who is doing this in production, and there was only one hand who got up a bit. So we're speaking about something that is not a very, very common practice, not a very established practice. But we can foresee that this area will evolve in what flavor or ever. And that means if we are serious about it, then we must think our architecture so that it can be used and optimized by agents. And that could mean, or that should mean that we isolate components and give access to those components to the agents. Yeah, so an agent can decide for this search request, do I want to use the re-ranker or not? Yeah, or do I want to use entity extraction or not? And this could be something for things like auto research, where I do an offline optimization of this, but there could also be a tendency or a direction that's slowly coming up where we do this at runtime, so that agents not just see the ultimate API that we're used to providing, but they also want to combine and compose the underlying components to provide better search results. We don't quite know how this looks like yet, but we should think in terms of those components to be future-proof. So next in my little metaphor, bonsai metaphor, is the shaping of the bonsai and the gardening. I would say the species already defines a bit the shape, but we can also prune some branches and garden it in the right way. So I've mentioned initially Conway's law, and some of you probably know about this. So it basically says organizations which design systems are constrained to produce designs which are copies of the communication structures of these organizations. So that means our team and communication structure is reflected in the architecture. That means, on the other hand, we also need to think about when we want to that if you want to have a certain software architecture, we need to align it with the team structure. And that might also mean we might have to change the team and organization structure to accommodate our new platform. Also means we cannot just follow an architecture blueprint. As I said, we really have to think who are the teams who create this, and that's also our little fertilizer for growth then. So make it easy for them. But still, we have to think about what are the guiding principles when we design this, and what does it mean for a search platform. So one aspect, and I'm following the team topologies method here, and it's also an interesting book. One aspect that I think is crucial here is we want to organize our interaction patterns so that we have communication where we need them, but not too much communication, because if you have too many dependencies on others, you would have to talk with a lot of other folks. And then we couldn't focus on what we really want to do, spend our time on implementing cool business features, but maybe have to speak with others. Oh, how does this API work, etc. So this diagram here basically highlights an ideal case. So what teams often have is they start with a very simple application, front-end and back-end database, and then more people applications get interested in the data, and there might be front-end, back-end, and database teams then, but they might share the database. And that is a bit asking for trouble, because then you struggle who changes what, etc. And in the ideal case, we would have teams that own everything, like we did in the old days when we were just a small application. But now everyone maybe owns their copy of the data, and then you can move quickly. You don't have any dependencies on teams that are not concerned with this use case, with this feature flow here. So this would be a team structure where we can, and let's say we can also do this in one team, then we would move very quickly. So it's like a stream of things that we can implement, because we don't depend on that other team maybe providing us with this data change, or we don't have to wait for the UI team if everything is one hand. This is probably not what a platform looks like, but we should keep in mind those concepts of optimizing for flow with little dependencies. This team topologies framework basically gives us certain team types that we should keep in mind when we design our platform and our architecture and our teams, and also how they typically collaborate. And I want to start with the stream aligned team, which is a team that basically owns this kind of vertical that I just showed, and they can move very quickly without a lot of dependencies. And they might use a platform still via service. So then their interaction is defined via that service, via that API that's exposed there as a service. So hopefully not too many dependencies here, but they can move relatively quickly. There might be a complicated subsystem team, which would be a team that, let's say, owns a certain component that would take the stream-aligned team very long to implement themselves, because it requires a lot of skill, difficult to maintain for them, so it might make sense to single this out. And either these two collaborate on that component, or the complicated subsystem team exposes the component as a service. And last but not least, there might be an enabling team. I like to call them like an internal consultancy. Yeah? So someone or a team with a high expertise in a certain area, and then they would go around and enable the others on that specific aspect. Yeah? So to give you an example, outside search, I once witnessed how a large company migrated to AWS services. So they had a team that would go around and then help each of the other teams with their migration. Yeah? And so they shared their knowledge and helped establish best practices based on their skills. And we could imagine something similar for search. So I spare you all the details about these. This was where I could gain some time. And now let's look back at our scenarios. Yeah, so no search team at all yet, so we can design things from scratch. Existing platform team, so that would probably go to a platform team. But then it becomes interesting where we have a search application team that would probably be very similar to our stream-aligned team. And then if we want this team to create the platform, then basically the nature of this team changes. They're no longer a stream-aligned team. Yeah? So suddenly they have a new task. They have to provide this platform like a product to others. Yeah? So their product, their output, so to say, changes. And that can be quite interesting if you implement that. So I would say typical topologies for search when we want to introduce a search platform would take one of two flavors, I would say. So the first one is we have a platform team that provides search as a service to one or more, let's say, feature teams or stream-aligned teams. And then it would also have to provide enabling. So that means we have not just to think about what APIs we provide and make the APIs user-friendly. We also have to help the other teams migrate to that platform. And that can either be done as a separate enabling team, depends a bit on the scale of it, or the enabling becomes a task of the platform team as well. Yeah, so there are maybe two flavors of playing this, but that's basically the situation. An interesting question is, and I haven't found the answer yet, is if we had a stream-aligned team for search and they now take over creating the platform, the pattern, what I've seen is now this team is both a stream-aligned team for their old search that they're still maintaining or developing further, and a platform team for others. Yeah, so that's a high cognitive load. And I would say it would become better to split these, so that these guys here can focus on the search application and the platform team becomes a proper platform team and develops the platform team as a platform. The other possible pattern here is we see search being implemented as a complicated subsystem. Yeah, so a team basically that goes around, has a number of established practices, and then helps other teams implement their search. So they bring a number of components and also take a certain ownership, but it's kind of shared with others. That would still facilitate for the stream-aligned teams to move faster. Yeah? So they don't have to learn everything about search. If I have someone coming and showing me how that works and helps me set this up, those guys here, the complicated subsystem team, they might carry over best practices from user of search to the next user of search, might be a way that you could go. If you compare the two, so a proper platform team with an enabling team attached or some form of enabling versus complicated subsystem, then I would say we have a certain tendency towards the proper platform team. So here we have less customization. The platform's developed like a product, and this team basically has very little distractions, so they can really focus on providing that new great search. And also this high degree of self-service that we can put into the platform. Like maybe you configure something, some retrieval strategies in a UI, yeah, so we can let your or at least encapsulate those kinds of query execution strategies, and then let other teams pick from some. So this is all self-service, and that would support a builder culture nicely. Yeah, so people can try out things more quickly. The complicated subsystem team, it might be appropriate if you have a lot of customizations. So then this generalized platform doesn't make that much sense. Yeah, if each of your use cases is different. But it doesn't scale. Yeah, so then your search experts have to go from one user of search to the next. They have to remember all the business contexts. So this does not really scale. Yeah, but still there might be a bit of reuse of solutions. And I would say this is adverse to builder culture, yeah, because we miss this self-service part of it. So I think here we have a bit of a problem, but it still might make sense if we are customizing deeply, then we might not find the generalizations that we have with a proper platform. Also, an important aspect here is if you go for the platform team, you will have to say, oh, we can't implement all the features. Yeah, so because we are generalized, yeah, so that means we can support more use cases, but maybe not each and every use case to the detail they would like, that they wish for. But this is a conscious decision that you have to take to supply a platform to a larger audience, yeah? So, or to a larger group of users. Okay, so my key takeaways that I want to give to you. So when we start with this platform migration, don't just run into it. Yeah? So start with a systematic assessment of search maturity in your organization. So, and then you would probably figure out some gaps. Most prominently and importantly, I would say measurability and skills. Yeah, so that's what we need here. A data assessment. Yeah, so we need to understand the required data sources and the required transformations. The approach that I try to highlight is try to avoid transformations in search that depend a lot on the business specifics of that one consumer of search, because this again doesn't scale, and it should be the concern of the search team to know all about the business specifics of the data providers. Then in terms of the search specifics, yeah, so we have this bonsai tree that is a search bonsai tree, so to say, a search platform. Supporting the builder culture, yeah, so APIs, self-service is important, having an expert on your team. And then agentic optimization, yeah, prepare for that. So make components accessible to agents. And last but not least, be aware of your team topology. So be conscious about this. So from our perspective, as long as things can be generalized a lot, a platform team with some form of enabling, maybe enabling team seems the most powerful here, because then you're very conscious about that this is a product. And also you need to understand that if you already have a search application and that's really owned by a search team, then you might have to transform an already existing stream-aligned search team to a platform team. And so they would have to give up certain things, like maybe doing complicated data transformations, and also some features that people wish for. But the mindset there is it's a platform, and the generalization is what we have. And through this, we support many more use cases than we used to. Right, so that's it from my side. Before we go to questions, I want to mention that we'd be happy to discuss your specific platform challenges. Maybe just do a 30 minutes call and then talk about what your concerns are and what your challenges are. Yeah, feel free to reach out to us, but I'd also be happy to answer questions or thoughts. So please feel free to share anything you wanted to share. Thank you. Any questions at this point or feedback?
Thank you, René. Let me start. No, I think it was really interesting webinar you organized. At this moment, I don't have any questions, but probably next week we will talk.
Okay, over a beer.
Right?
Okay, all right. I would be interested if anyone is facing situations like this. Finn.
Yeah, I've got a question kind of related to this. So we, where we work, we have I guess like a reasonably large search team compared to some places. So there's, I don't know, maybe anything up to like 60 people who we've recently like reorganized into kind of something similar to this kind of platform approach you're
Mhm.
describing, where previously they were kind of all working on various aspects of the search system.
Mhm.
Um, Now, within that, we have kind of teams focused on query understanding, relevance optimization, data ingestion, various other things.
Mhm.
And I guess I'd be kind of interested in like different patterns you've seen, like these kind of medium to larger size search teams adopt, like within this kind of, if you imagine like a nested platform team, like what
Mhm.
sort of structures have you observed like within this kind of box?
This is a very interesting situation when you have. It sounds like you traditionally have focused on a specific search application or search use case or a small number of them, and
Mhm.
now you're thinking of growing that. Um, I would say the uh, the question here would be, what is the need of those of the consumers of the platform, and do you really have to um, provide them all with the best incarnation of the features that you have in your specialized application team? So and that's also a very tricky aspect. So let's say you have a very specialized re-ranker with very with personalized data, and it depends a lot on feedback, etc. So I would say this is a situation that can be very hard to generalize. Yeah, so there you might end up with more something like that, or you go here with a reduced set of features. I would say maybe you can have a simple re-ranker, maybe just a regression tree without any personalization features. Um, it depends a bit on who those clients are, of who those new clients of the search platform are. Yeah, so that's how I would see it. So I guess you can't scale this. Yeah, so except if everyone wants the same results like the current search application has provided, then it's a different story. But I would assume that those use cases might differ, and maybe they're not. And then you might end up with a smaller common denominator that would then become the search platform. And in terms of teams, then that would be a separate team. Yeah, so you would have that very specialized team that you already have on your, I call it now the main application, but I'm making a lot of assumptions, and uh, and then have a platform team that builds something for the others. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? can you do a quick show of hands? Who is busy with platform migrations at the moment? Or rethinking their platform? Yeah, Finn is, of course. Yeah, there are a few. Yeah. I think this is a very current topic. Yeah, and I think we haven't found the holy grail yet in a number of aspects, like the how exactly do we serve agents, or how exactly do we optimize search in agentic way, or how do we execute agentic search? So this is growing. But I think this is not the most important part of it. Yeah. So I think what is established, what we know is there will be more applications. Yeah. And then the structure, the principles related to data, something like team structure, I think this is what helps us accommodate for the future. It's not I can deal with agents. I mean, I'll have to deal with the agents at some point, but I can be more confident if I have this structure in place. Julian.
A quick question. So at what scale and at what point do you pitch building a platform team to leadership, right? Because it requires an investment, and how do you kind of make the proposal to get an ROI of it? So maybe from your experience so far dealing with this.
Mm-hmm. I hadn't thought about it. So we usually get approached by rather big companies. I would say you need a number of use cases that you can foresee that need search. And I would say you need at least a team of around 8-10 people to build something. So that's where it is, I think. If you can afford that, and if you can make the business case for the applications, and I think that's where you start. Jeremy or Jeremiah.
I'm wondering if your thoughts on, how to motivate, I guess, an organization to build a search platform when, there's so many good cloud offerings for search systems, that like these stream focused teams can kind of just deploy to pretty easily. Like when is the complexity like warranted for your
I think these cloud offerings cover mainly the relatively low aspect, that is the operational side of, let's say, retrieval, maybe ranking sometimes. But when it comes to your business specifics and your own data processing, I think then there's a good point. There can also be something to do with governance and isolation, etc. But I think the major point here is business specifics and control. Yeah. So, I mean, let's say if you have a search engine, like let's say AWS OpenSearch, that gives you a lot of primitives that you need to still orchestrate and then adjust for your business domain. Yeah, so it's not like you can just turn it on and then it's there. If you look at offerings that are at a bit of a higher level, so someone just providing you with a re-ranker that says I do personalization and everything, that's something to try out, but it will always hit your limits if you want to go deep and really understand stuff. Yeah, so I mean, this is not new to AI. Yeah, so this has been a thing for search all the time. I would say the platform team, especially in combination with the enabling team. Yeah, so that's something where you can really scale the adoption of search in your organization. Yeah, so you have a kind of a focused group that does search. It's not just a technology, but you have this focused group that does search for all the or helps doing search for all the use cases in your organization. Yeah, so in the end, I think usually it boils down to how much does the management appreciate search, and how much do they recognize that now we are at a point where we're getting more and more search use cases, and then a platform might be appropriate. All right. Steve.
Yeah, if we have maybe a couple more minutes. I'm from Idealo. We have this fairly small kind of search backend team, around 6 people, but we have like different components of search also in different teams, like recommendations is in a different team, like the MCP server is in a separate team, and they're also building like this, let's say, like planning to build like a chatbot AI interface, for example. And I'm wondering, right, are we already at this search platform setup, or are we maybe, in the phase of really trying to figure that out? Because yes, right, our core backend search team, does, lexical search, vector search, the ranking, and all the A/B test experimentation about all of this. And then like for the agentic use cases and for other things, this other team, creates the MCP server platform and so on. So I wonder if other companies like split it like that as well, just from team size and responsibility, or if you say this really belongs together, especially if you think about AI platform and so on. Yeah.
I think this is a common pattern that we see. And I think it has not just to do with skills. I think it's a minor factor, but it has to do with speed. So the search team that already maintains the search application, they have different release cycles and also experimentation capabilities or capacities compared to someone who now brings in, let's say, a RAG system, a chatbot, wants to play with MCP. So they have different responsibilities, and it's accepted that they break things. So this is where we kind of start chartering the territory. So this is very common. Yeah, and oftentimes organizations even have to absolutely isolate those who work on, let's say, RAG or whatever from the rest, so that they get the freedom to move fast. Nevertheless, we have clients where this is how it started, but then also the new part, so the MCP users and maybe RAG builders get into a more established cycle of building their application. And then what we observe is that there comes this insight, this is very similar to what we've been doing in search all the time. Yeah, and then they join. Yeah, so then it becomes a different thing. Nevertheless, there might be different incarnations of what search has to look like on the platform, and maybe different types of indices, etc. But the overall practices and pipelines and approaches are very similar. Yeah, and then that might be a point where to rethink. We've also seen that this can be a bit disappointing for the search teams of many years. Yeah, so others get to move quickly and can play with the new stuff. But this is how it is. Yeah, but personally, I would say I'm really impressed by how much this now comes back to search and how much demand comes back to search to empower these other use cases. Yeah, so might just be a temporary thing.
Yeah, thanks for the, I guess, experience you've seen with others as well.
All right. I guess that's all we have, and we're at the end of this. So as I said, please reach out to us. And other than that, I think we sent out a little feedback form. We'd be glad if you reply to it. And I hope to see many of you next week in Berlin at Berlin Buzzwords, MySys for e-commerce search, what is else? Future of Search event, so the whole search week next week. All right, thank you. Cheers, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.